Have you noticed that there are way less bike shops out there than there were 10 years ago? Maybe the local bike shop that you visited growing up is no longer there. My name is Matthew Fox. I own and operate a refurbished bike shop called Recycles Bikes in Central Maryland. And I'm gonna make an overtly honest statement. Even though I've enjoyed 7 years of wild success, if I instead chose to sell new bicycles instead of used, I cannot confidently say that I would still be open today. While I would love to take credit for having the business savvy of figuring out how to make something work amidst an industry that's struggling, the truth is I'm a little bit outside of that struggling industry. And when it comes to selling new bikes, the pressure is really on, and there's a lot of shops closing for a lot of reasons. I'm gonna get into 3 of those reasons now. The first 2 may seem pretty straightforward. The third one is kind of a reaction that the industry or your local bike shop is having. Maybe you've noticed it, maybe you haven't, but hopefully this video gives you a little bit of clarity as to why you're seeing something that on the surface might not make the most sense as a consumer walking into a bike store. So the first reason that bike shops are struggling is the digitization of our world, basically the Amazon world that we're living in, where people expect things quicker, cheaper, and with a guaranteed return policy, where basically the human element of a lot of products that we consume is being stripped away bit by bit. And I don't mean to say this as a wah that it's happening. I don't really believe in complaining about the circumstances that are occurring in front of you. This is just an observation. Amazon is a clear dominator in the market, and it has definitely changed the way that the consumer believes that products and services should be delivered to them. And even in my 7-year span operating a small shop in Central Maryland, I can clearly see a lot of those behaviors. There are certain revenue streams that I just choose to not lean into because I concede that Jeff Bezos can deliver them more effectively than I can. Meanwhile, there's a lot of shop owners out there that continue to spin their wheels, attempting to compete with a giant that realistically they probably shouldn't be trying to go up against. And I'm not trying to say that as like throwing the towel, we're done because Jeff Bezos has taken all the bike sales. But just recognize the world we live in and the average expectations of the consumer that's coming into the door. You're gonna get the sale based on the friendly hands-on service or even little things like memberships that incentivize loyalty on your behalf. One thing that we've been really successful with is our membership program that people enjoy because if they shop exclusively with us, then we actually are able to beat most of Amazon's pricing while installing the item for you. Yes, you have to make the trip down to us and actually have a conversation with a human instead of shopping in your pajamas at 2 a.m. But if you come at it with the right angle and customer service and build that rapport on their first visit, they won't feel that friction in coming back down to chat with you. By the way, just a really quick note, if you're interested in drilling down further and figuring out how to either start or optimize your current bike business, we do have a tremendous amount of value behind our memberships. We're really proud of what we've packed in to something that we can essentially make available at a really accessible price point. It's essentially all of my hard-earned lessons over these past 10 years in business. You can check out the links below. So in this Amazon world, a lot of people are starting to get used to getting products online. Bikes are a little bit resistant to this because it is kind of like a pair of shoes where you want to try it on before committing to a purchase. And even though returns are so easy on a lot of online platforms, that also doesn't necessarily apply to bikes. So there is still a little bit of a stake in the ground when it comes to bike shops holding on. However, I'm gonna get into reason number 2 that your local bike shop is struggling. So reason number 2, you've probably heard of the phrase big pharma. In our case, we're gonna use the phrase big bike, and that might sound really silly because you're used to going down to your local mom and pop bike shop and you don't think of large corporate conglomerates controlling all of these little things. But the reality is there are only 3 or 4 really big mega giants at least in the United States, that control an overwhelming percentage of the market. And in response to the Amazon world that we're living in, they are slowly but surely making some big moves that's squeezing out the middleman, which in your case happens to be your local bike shop. If Trek Bikes can get their product for a certain price from Southeast Asia and then sell it to the retailer who then sells it to you, the retailer is a middleman, a necessary middleman, because they're also the end person to you that's in charge of the servicing and all the other things that come with owning a bike. But Big Bike has been losing sight on the importance of service alongside with sales for a long time now. And they're really just looking at the numbers. And if you look at this from a numbers perspective, it doesn't make sense to have the retailer there at all. It makes the most sense to source direct from Southeast Asia and then sell direct to you, the consumer. That's where Trek's gonna make their biggest margin. And from their perspective, the model didn't change that much. They were already buying from one person and selling to the retailer. And in this case, they're still buying from one source and selling to another, but now at a larger margin. And in the short term, there's very little consequences to that. But in the long term, you, the consumer, are getting a product that maybe you're happier to get a little bit cheaper now, and maybe you're happy that you didn't have to go talk to the local bike snob and get some rude response or this or that about them judging your bike or even your socks. But the problem lies in that middleman that's getting cut off is also your main source of service. And in the long run, bikes need service. And unless you're gonna jump on YouTube and start muddling through all of it yourself, you really do wanna still have that local bike shop around. So a lot of people go at this type of conversation with like a save the bees tone of voice. I'm not trying to tell you how to spend your money. People are always going to go towards whatever products or services deliver the least friction for the best product at the lowest price in the shortest amount of time. But just realize when you buy something like a bicycle, it is just complicated enough that you are really going to need to have established some type of relationship with somebody who can service that product long term. So straight up, some shop owners might get angry with me, but even if you want to buy the bike online, go ahead, do so, but make sure that you establish some type of relationship with your local bike shop. Not even just to keep them around, but just for your sake as the consumer. Understand that if you're buying something online, you're not buying a bicycle and then that's it and it's said and done. You're buying a product whose shelf life deeply depends on the service that you're able to get. And at the end of the day, the product that you're getting is 100% disposable if not taken care of properly. You can have a bike for the next 2 years that you throw away and replace with the next purchase. Or you can make an informed decision and get something of at least somewhat objective quality and get it serviced on a regular interval. And now you're taking that same bicycle and you're handing it down to your children. So don't take me as saying that we need to save the bike shops. Just understand from your perspective as the consumer that bike shops play still a pivotal role, even in a world where we can get so many of our things online. And so the third thing that I wanted to talk about, this is less a reason that bike shops are going extinct and more so a reaction to these pressures. And it's something that you may have noticed if you've been in a bike shop lately, and maybe it's something that has frustrated you. But realize that this is the slow strangulation of that middleman, which is your local bike shop. And that third thing that I wanted to get into is the non-stocking dealer status, or essentially the reason why you walk into a shop here and there and they might only have 10 bicycles for sale. More and more shops are moving into this model where they are a non-stocking dealer. And I'm gonna be completely upfront. We have experimented with new bicycles and found that the most effective way for us to carry brands like Giant and Surly is as a non-stocking dealer, which means we don't have any of their bikes in our store. But if you wanted to walk in and chat with us about which model and size may be best for you, we can order them in. It's essentially a bridging the gap between the bike shop experience and the Amazon experience. You still get to go in and have a conversation with a professional, get yourself fitted, and have that kind of extra oomph of confidence before your purchase. Because at the end of the day, you are purchasing a complicated and difficult to ship product that you might not be able to simply just send back to the seller. And at the same time, you're still establishing a relationship with a shop that may be able to service that product on into the future. So this can solve for some of those problems and make a little bit of a happy middle ground where your shop still in effect gets the sale, but they also don't necessarily have to stock inventory, which can be an expensive and difficult thing to do. Imagine drop shipping, but with a personal touch. This stuff is really nice to talk about on paper, but more often than not, this actually is frustrating for the consumer. People that walk into bike shops generally want to touch and feel the bike that they're gonna walk out with that day. So if you're frustrated in going into your shop and not seeing that bike always on the shelf, just understand that this is a byproduct of more and more people buying bikes online. Big Bike is seeing this, and they're starting to buy out the middleman, or in other cases, leaving them out high and dry altogether and just selling direct to consumer. So at the end of the day, your local bike shop is slowly disappearing in response to human behavior. So what can you as a consumer do in response to a world where bike shops may be in danger of going extinct? Well, two things. One, continue to establish a relationship, at least on the level of service, with the bikes that you have. And in the event that it's inevitable that bike shops are all going to go extinct, at least you're delaying that reality. And the second thing is, start looking at and appreciating bike mechanics as the skilled trade that they are, and maybe take it upon yourself to get a little bit of those skills yourself. The average person out there has at least a little bit of know-how when it comes to maintaining their own home. This is recognized as something that is a life skill that can save you a lot and pay dividends in the future. I'm not talking about becoming a licensed plumber, but being able to fix really simple things like a loose faucet is something that is generally perceived as a valuable skill set. Understand that as bike shops disappear, the skill set of being able to service your own bicycle is going to become increasingly more valuable. And it's something that you should maybe start considering taking upon yourself, even if just for servicing the 1 or 2 bikes in your garage. Or better yet, you can go the full 9 yards and start actually reviving used bikes for resale. Ergo, me plugging my own business model, because in a world where a lot of the bike industry has been burning, I have felt like I have been happily outside of that bubble, finding a niche that works. Not reinventing the wheel, just reselling it.